it again, just showing you one of my league recaps. Last time we did a head-to-head. This time we're going to do a roto. So you can see that I tied for first place over here. It's highlighted for David Bud's league. I was tied for first out of 9th. It's funny because I was first place for a very, very long time, and I think I kind of just like let it slide, thinking that no one's going to catch me, and I slowly started seeing the second place guy creep up and catch up to me. And I think he was actually in first place for a couple of hours in the last day of the season, or last game of the season, and I squeaked by and came back to tie it up. Like I said, I had too many leagues and I just lost focus, and I think took too much energy and time and effort away from doing well in every other league. But I still managed to come first place because I thought I drafted really well, and I managed really well. And there were a lot of trades during the season, and it kind of hampered my team a little bit, and we'll go over that very quickly. So let's go right into it. So this is Roto, and I'm going to show you what the settings were for this league first, because I didn't really talk about that in the last one, so I think I owe that to you. You know, every league is different, so as you can see, the roster positions, you got your point guard, shooting guard, 2 guards, 1 small forward, 1 power forward, 2 forwards, a center, utility, which is like any position player, 4 on the bench, or sorry, 5 on the bench, and 2 IL spots. So one thing with this league that I found was when there is no IL with a plus, meaning any player that is injured on that day, they could be out just for that day, not really on the injured reserve or anything like that. They can go on the IL plus. But with the IL, they have to be deemed injured, so INJ next to their name. If they have an O, they can be placed on the IL plus, and they can be put back in the next year or something. But with the IL, the player has to be deemed injured, and that's kind of like the biggest drawback, because you'll get one of those guys, you know, eating up your roster spot. You don't know if he's going to come back. They go on the IL, and the next day they're back, and you have no idea whether they're going to be back or not. You just have to be on top of it. But you lose a game from them, and that's very valuable in Roto, because it's very hard to make up statistics for players who were drafted in the first couple of rounds. Like, I know I lost Embiid early in the season. Who's gonna make up Embiid numbers, right? Obviously not Paul Reed, as we learned from the last video. So yeah, you got to be on top of it, and it definitely helps to know what kind of settings you have in terms of the categories that you're drafting for. So you got field goals made, field goal percentage, free throws made, free throw percentage, 3-point shots made, points scored, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, steals as well, assists, steals, and blocks, known as stocks. Now, the first thing you may notice, I hope you did, there's one category that's missing in this that's probably big in basketball and can be a huge difference maker in who you draft, where you are in that position. You got it. You get it? You got it? Turnovers. Big category that will boost so many different players. You know, guys that have the basketball in their hand for such a long time, who have high turnover rate. You know, Westbrook was one of them back in the days. He would be a huge boost. He'd get a huge boost playing in this kind of league, to draft in this kind of league. But obviously, he doesn't have the same statistical numbers like he used to, with a triple-double threat. So guys like maybe Luka Doncic from Dallas Mavericks, you know, his value goes up even higher in this league. So let's take a look at what the draft was like. I'm going to try to keep this video short and sweet. The last time I went overboard. So here are the draft results. So I am Hustlers. Jokic, there goes first. Second, Doncic, followed by Embiid. Tatum, which I thought was a very questionable pick, but, you know, it kind of worked out for him, I guess. And I took Giannis. I took Giannis simply for, you know, he had Dame. It's funny because in my last video, I took Dame, which was a head-to-head league. But being 5th, I noticed that, you know, I thought I was going to get more assists from Giannis. A little bit more help on the scoring side. You know, losing Drew, you know, you might have to step up a little bit more on the defensive side. I still think he's a first-round value. You know, he gets those free throw attempts. He scores a lot. The only damper is his free throw percentage, which I was willing to punt along with 3 points, which is what I did with my draft strategy, and it worked out clearly. He wasn't great on the defensive side, and we can take a look at his numbers near the end. But I went with him because I thought he was going to provide that. And looking at the first round, picks, I think the only other person I would have taken probably Shy, and I just thought Giannis having Lillard there on the side as a sidekick, great 1-2 combo, easy assist numbers, and I thought that would have drove my assist value, my assist numbers up for that category. Defense would have been great because, Lillard would have been able to draw guys out to him, and Giannis would have just, blocked people. Just let him, like Lillard's not the best guy to play defense, so I thought Giannis would have had an easy time blocking, shadowing guys who get past Lillard, and on the offensive side, easy draw and kick, and Giannis would have been an easier time to get to the basket. Like I said, Lillard would have drawn guys out of the key, so it didn't really fruition. He had a couple of missed games here and there. And I think he bounces back next year and hopefully plays more than whatever games he played this year. But for the most part, he was healthy. He didn't have the same number of stocks like he's had in the past. But I hope that he rebounds that in those categories next year. And he definitely was a great anchor for my team. And he led the way. Leading to my second pick was Anthony Edwards. Big summer. Huge numbers. Everyone was talking about how he was going to have the ball in his hands and he's going to be the go-to guy, and he was. When Cat went down, he's a very high volume shooter. He didn't have the best percentages per se. He didn't have the greatest defensive stats, but we can take a look at it right now. As you can see, pulling up, he averaged 1.3 steals, which is lower than last year. Same kind of numbers as last year, 46.1 percentage, up by a bit from last year, but still a high volume shooter. He gets those threes, he gets to the rim, he gets to the free throw line. His turnovers are fairly high, so that's why I drafted him. I was like, you know what, he's gonna have the ball in his hands, he's gonna score, he'll drive up my whole numbers. Percentages wise, he kind of a drag. I hope that he was a little bit higher on the free throw percentage side, and he went up almost 8%, which is huge. And I hope that he goes up even higher next year, which would boost his value even more. Hopefully, a little bit more on the steal side. The blocks expected not to be there, but with Giannis on my team anchoring that, I thought it would even out. But he was, my draft strategy was to punt the threes and punt the free throws. So it kind of worked out, and you'll see what I finished in those categories at the end. My third pick was De'Aaron Fox. After last year, moving on from Halliburton and having the ball in his hands all the time with Sabonis and key shooters on the other team, he didn't fruition to the best of my ability. To my thoughts, at least. I know he finished with 26.6. Higher than last year, a little bit lower on the assist side. Terrible field goal. Terrible. This is why I drafted him this year, because I expected him to go up even higher than 51%, and he did not. Terrible free throw percentage as well. So those really drove my percentages down. I was hoping that they would counter with Giannis's, but I was punting threes and free throws anyway, so it didn't hurt me, but it also didn't help me either, because I was literally last place, I believe, and you'll see that later. Steals were fairly high. He almost doubled himself up this year to 2. Blocks, he gets like one every other game almost. Turnovers didn't affect me because they're not even counted. But I took him because he has the ball in his hands, and it's very hard to find a guard at that round with such value. So he was up 1 point from last year, an average, and he played 74 games, so he's fairly healthy. It gets you good numbers, but percentage-wise, he was atrocious this year, and that really drove my team down. Even though I had one of the highest field goal percentages, simply because of Giannis and a couple other guys. Then I had DeMar DeRozan, simply because he gets those numbers in terms of assists, rebounds, points, free throws especially. So I thought this would have boosted my free throw percentage, and for the most part it did. He's been in the league for almost 15 years now. He knows how to get to the rim. He's hitting at an 85 clip. You know, he was at a 40% rate for field goal. Not so bad. He fairly decent on the steal side. This point percentage is up there. A couple of rebounds and assists, which was expected, and I think great value at that round considering who I had to pick from. The only other person I could think of was Wembanyama, and I think had I had him, my blocks would have been up. Rebounds, you know, I kind of had a huge oversight on Wembanyama for many leagues, even though I should have taken him in the second or third. You know, I thought he would have bounced back to me in that round, which is where I took Randall. Randall always falls to me for some reason, so that's who I took in round 5. I mean, you can see his value. It's not the best. You know, he got injured later on in the season, and that kind of really put a damper. Like another huge turnover guy. His field goal was up. His free throw was up from last year, so that was a big bonus. And I think he's finding his way around to the rim and scoring in good spots. He just doesn't chuck them up like he used to before. So he's good, brings a lot of good value. I know he's a huge turnover guy, so the ball's going to be in his hands. Doesn't matter because TOs aren't even part of this league, so it's a big bonus. Stocks doesn't really do anything for you. You know, get you those rebounds and assists, and it's really hard to find a guy in this round like him that produces as such. But there are other guys I would take, you know, to help me boost my stocks, like Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes I passed up on, but now we know what these guys can do for next year. So in one of my future videos, I will talk about guys to look out for, and I'll go over an article in the next one as well where it says who the top picks are for next year, and then we'll review that. But right now we're just recapping what I did in this league. So Brandon Ingram was next. Big bonus because he plays 3 positions. Now again, this league there's max 90 games per position. Once you have reached that cap, you can't, no stats won't count anymore for those games played. So he was out for a bit. Number and points went down. You know, if McCollum's there now full season with him, he's gonna have the ball in his hands. But Ingram finds a way to score, finds a way to distribute, gets on the glass, and this was great because his percentages for free throw, although they were down, his field goal was up. He wasn't hitting at a great clip, but again, I was punting 3-point, and I was punting free throws, especially with Giannis, and I was going for guys who can produce all around. He doesn't do much for steals and blocks, Ingram, but he gets a little bit here and there done, and I think it suffices just enough to get me to that first place that I had. But he was injured, but he did enough of a good job, and I think had he played maybe 10 more games, good value would have been coming from him, especially in that round that I took him. Now we're only 9 teams. The drafts are always loaded with people. You know, who would I have taken in this position otherwise than Ingram? Really tough to say. Really tough. I like Maxey. I have him in a couple other leagues. Should have probably taken Holgram or Sengun, knowing that I had missed out on a couple of good big men. And you need that, right? You need quality guys who are going to produce. It's really hard to find quality players in positions later in the rounds. So maybe next time, get one big, get one guard, get a good forward or something, balance out your team. Next up, which I thought Giddey would have replicated his numbers from last year, but clearly Shai is a man in town, and heads up to everyone next year. Giddey's only going to produce when Shai is out. The ball will be in his hands, and you've seen his numbers when Shai is out. What happens later on in the season? Giddey is almost triple-double threat. And he sprinkles a little bit of everything to the team. Let's take a look at what he did. There you go, 12.3 points, 4.8 assists, 6.4 rebounds. As you can tell, everything is lower than last year for a reason. You know, Shai is the man in town. He's gonna have the ball. Free throw percentage is up. Field goal percentage is not there. Obviously, from 14 field goal attempts to 10, no value there in him. And I think I reached for him simply because of last year's numbers. And I think a lot of people are going to fall into that, fall into that myth. Hey, this guy produced last year. I think everything changes depending on who's there, and I think everyone is going to reach for Shai early in the rounds. Giddey's going to have a huge fall. I can predict that right now. This is only a 9-team league, and we go draft 15 players. So what is that? 135 players. 9 times 5. or 15. Um, and so yeah, he's like, I don't see Giddy in round 7 next year. Depending on what happens, especially with Jalen Williams there and Chet Holmgren, this is a team that is going to feast on these young guys, and Giddy is just a role player now. In round 8, I went with Tyler Hero. I thought it was a good reach. Again, same thing with the guard lineups that I had. I thought that I would balance out my free throw percentages. He also got injured too midway through. Fairly good season in terms of what he produced. 20 points, similar to last year, 4.5 assists, 5.3 rebounds. Field goal killer in that. I thought Giannis would balance it out for me, and he did. And I'll show you what I had finished with in the league. Free throws atrocious. He would drop almost 8.5 points. He doesn't get any stock, so I think you gotta reach for guys who are gonna get you numbers that you're lacking in, and I just kept pushing my main cats up. So I was going for field goal percentage, rebounds, assists, and points, and hopefully everything else was like I was middling in. I think steals I was up there as well. But Tyler Hero at this stage, had he not been injured, he only played 42 games, would definitely brought a lot of good value. He was putting up big numbers during that time. He would have bumped up my 3-point as well, since even though I was punting it, I think he would have at least got me to the middle and not last place, I think. We'll see where we're at with that. And then after I got Jared Allen, there's my big right there. I think it was too late, but it was a reach, and it was definitely great, especially when Mobley went down. He brought in great value numbers. I think it would have been much different had Mobley been there. He's 16.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, similar to what he was last year, just a little bit higher on both sides. He's great with stocks, no turnovers, not that it mattered. His assist was up. He's great with the ball. He knows exactly where to pass. If you ever watched him play, he's great with it. He draws a lot of attention and he gets to the rim. He shot the most field goals this year, attempts at least, 10.6 compared to 9.2 and 9.7 the years before, respectively. He hit at a great clip. His field goal percentage is great, 63. Free throws, alright. Didn't shoot any threes, but no big deal. I took him simply for his stocks, and it was a great result for me. 10th round, I took Terry Rozier. Just thought, Charlotte, he's got the ball in his hands. He produced last year. Hopefully he will do great, and he was great at the beginning of the season before he got traded to Miami. 23.2 points, 6.6 assists, 3.9 rebounds, great on steals. He was high on his field goal, probably one of his best throughout his career. Even on his free throw, he was even better in Miami, but obviously not being the main man anymore. He was like second or third fiddle behind Hero and Butler and Bam. His free throw percentage is obviously still high, but just his attempts are low, and they almost cut down to half from 4.3 to 2.2, and that just shows you he doesn't have the ball in his hands, so he's going to be a role player there. Still shot enough volume, 14.5 a game, making 6.1, but his field goal percentage is down. I thought he would have an easier time to score with all those guys on that team, drawing people into them and kicking it out to Rozier for an easy buckets. But we'll see how that happens. We'll see what happens next year when he has a full season underneath his belt with Miami. After that, I had taken Daniel Gafford this is when he was on Washington, and he was solid. The year before he finished with great numbers. He's a huge monster under glass. He started great with Washington, as you can see. He's averaging 10.9 points, 2.2 blocks, 1 steal, 1.5 assists, 8 rebounds, and that's in 45 games. A huge field goal boost. Terrible on the free throw, but he was still great. It was his highest of his career, 70.6. And then when he got traded to Dallas, the ship sank. He was on the bench, came off the bench for a couple of games, and then he found his groove. Got back in the starting lineup. His block percentage, or his blocks went down to 1.9. His steals went down 0.7. Rebounds went down. Dunk is just a man there. Sorry, Gaff. His assist rate remained the same. I guess he's like a when Doncic is out, then he's a man. He's gonna clean up that glass. He's gonna feed people, kick it out, and yeah, he's gonna get easy buckets with Kyrie. Drives to the hoop and finding them easy. So his percentages went up for 70 O for field goal percentage, easy buckets for him. That's what it means. That's what it translates to. The math is simple for that. After that, I took Miles Bridges. This was like a hidden gem. I kept him on my queue for a long time. You know, we know what he's gonna do on Charlotte, and he's a main man there now. You know, Lonzo, who knows what's gonna happen with them? His numbers are up, and they keep going up from his rookie year. He's been 5 years in the league now, 69 games. Not the best field goal percentage, even though I think it'll be higher next year. But you know, not getting easy buckets for him is definitely hard on him. He's got to create a lot on his own. He's got to find someone to feed him. And I think with Lonzo coming back next year, hopefully, that it will be that those field goal percentage numbers are going to be higher, and his free throw percentage will be higher as well. And I think he's going to hit at a higher clip for his 3 points because he's been chucking them. You know, they're at 6.5 clip compared to 2.5 from his first year. The game's gone to the 3-point line. Hopefully they remove that line. Everyone knows I hate the 3-point line. Even though I will shoot from there, but I don't mind. Make them 2 points. Everything should be 2 points. Anyways, highest average for points, 21 point per game, 21 points per game, 7.3 rebounds. So he's up all around, and he gets steals and blocks. And I think that only goes up higher with Lonzo in the game. And you know, hopefully a couple of their players show up next year full season because Charlotte's gonna need it, and Miles Bridges' numbers need to go up if we're gonna draft him. 13th round, I took Russell Westbrook. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. You know, thinking triple double threat, but his numbers weren't there. I just took him simply because he's the only guy that's gonna give me assists and rebounds, and I want to keep pushing. But it was a bench player anyways for me. Not really one of my first round or my go-to guys that will play a lot. Like I said, there's only 90 games per maximum per slot. He would have been like a filler in case one of my main guys were out. And he still produced. He was starting lineup. He was in the starting lineup earlier, and he got to the bench eventually, which is where he should be. But I think he's found his role on the bench, and he loves it. And kudos to him for continuing to play even after 15, 16 seasons in the league, and he just loves the game. And if you watch him, it's all hard out there for him, and he just wants to win. Hopefully, they make it far this year. All the best, buddy. But I will not draft him next year. After, I needed another big as well. Like I said, quality big man go quick. Jonas Valanciunas was another guy that was looking for high field goal, high free throw percentage with a couple of stocks. He does a decent job, but you know, when you draft two guys from the same team, it's very difficult unless they are Sabonis and Fox. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, or like LeBron and AD, and it's very hard to pair JV with anybody. And I think this is like a back end of the draft, hoping that he produces the same numbers as last year, and that's why I took him. You know, he played in all 82 games, great, but he didn't really produce 82 games worth of numbers for me. And I think, looking back in hindsight, this was a reach, and I was hoping for the best. And I think I dropped him along the way at some point, but we'll see where it was in the league. Anyways, he's down on his points per game, rebounds per game. His assists are floating, hovering around 2.1 because he's got guys that can score that don't need the ball in their hands all the time, and he draws attention, and he passes well, and he's always done that his whole career. Steals and blocks, not really as much as I like, but yeah, that's that. Who did I get next? Last pick, Ivica Zubac. Same thing. Hoping to replicate last year's numbers, and he did. He was there. He played a good number of games, but I think I also dropped him. Somewhat of a reach. So, like I said, make sure you guys get the big guys early on in the draft, and then you balance it out with another quality guard along the way in your draft. So you're not stuck with picking up guys who you're hoping to repeat last year's numbers, because it never does happen like that all the time. Fortunately, it did for him and Valanciunas, but had I given up an earlier guard for a big quality big, it would have helped me along the season. I wouldn't have to panic back at the back end of the draft. So where did I finish in this? Let's look at the standings. So as you can see, number of games played, I was 5th in terms of number of games. I played 894 compared to 900 the first. Where was I in field goals made? I was first by over 200. So just something to keep in mind is knowing if you have a lot of players who are going to score a lot of field goals and not draft too many of those, and make sure you cover your other categories. So I finished ninth there. In field goal, I think it was tied. One guy beat me up by a percentage, even though I was up the whole season, and I just didn't follow along. And there's a couple of games where DeRozan went off, and I didn't have him in the lineup simply because I wasn't paying attention. But anyways, I finished second there. Free throws made, like I said, I finished above 21. I finished first place, which is 9. I got the 9 points because I was the highest out of 9 teams. But I finished 21 ahead of the next person, and I'm almost 340 ahead of the third person, meaning I was dominating free throws for a very long time. Free throws, as I said, I was punting. There you go. I'm in last place, as expected. I wasn't even trying to catch up after I had Giannis, meaning that I can punt that along the way and make sure that my other categories were stuffed. So my plan did work out as expected. Same thing with 3 points. As you can see, I'm in last place here. I lost that by 116 and 500 overall because the first person went for 3-pointers. In terms of points, it's surprising to see because, I didn't have that many 3-pointers, but I was first in field goals and free throws. That amounted my total points overall. I just had a lot of guys who were scoring points for me, and that was my plan, and my plan worked out. Offensive rebounds was a crapshoot. I finished second place. I just had guys who got the ball on the offensive rebound, and it's something that I wasn't really going after, but the quality bigs that I had, although they weren't grabbing defensive rebounds as much, I had guys who were grabbing offensive rebounds. But in my surprise, that I also finished first place in defensive rebounds, which is great for me because it helped both categories. Those bigs that I was getting in the late round were just quality guys who were giving me double-doubles. They didn't need the ball in their hands. They just go and rebound. One place that really surprised me was my assists. I know how I was drafting quality assist guys, quality guards who were getting me those assists, but not as high as I would have liked. And I think, De'Aaron Fox having the ball in his hands with Sabonis there ate away a lot of his assists, which is fine. I mean, I still finished fourth in that category, but I was only like 140 away, which is not that much. Ingram was out for such a long time. That would have definitely put me up ahead of Team Samurai in that category. I mean, it's fine. I still finished ahead than most people. In terms of steals, I had a great steal team. I had 892, well behind the first place. Meaning I gotta look out for that and keep an eye on that, and not just go after field goals made. And blocks, I knew I was gonna be somewhere middling. Didn't have the most. I lost by 1 over here. That's just a simple game that I missed from some of my players that were not paying attention. Had I had that guy in there, I would have won. So there's the overall rankings. It says tie here, but I think a game here or there definitely gets me that block. Definitely puts me up in that field goal. No excuses. You got to pay attention. Having 10 teams is not easy, but I still think I did fairly well. I drafted really well. I know what I would do differently next time. I'll be ready for next season, and next year's draft, which I'm really looking forward to. I got my winnings. I'm still playing my winnings from before. And yeah, let's get it. Hope to see everyone next season. Farmer out.